Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. Ladies and gents, if you cannot be happy at the moment, I'm not really sure there's much we can do to help you, in all honesty, because the Reds absolutely destroy Bayer Leverkusen. That's on the back of the Reds and Anfield coming to town against Brighton. And the Reds are in action against Aston Villa, where they have a chance to stay on top of the Premier League. What could it be but utterly positive across the board? And here to give me the stats, which will also hopefully be utterly positive across the board, is Ben as normal. Ben, how are we?
Very well. Like you said, what have I got to complain about right now? Not much, really. It's all been really good, really fun to watch. Yeah, I think the last I would say, just minus the first 45 minutes of the Bayer Leverkusen game, but the last half an hour of the Brighton game and the last 45 minutes of the Leverkusen game, that was super exciting and super fun to watch. I just sort of erased from my mind the first 45 minutes from that Leverkusen match.
Yeah. And do you know what, people? We won't kill the buzz at all. Let's talk about the Leverkusen destruction. And naturally, Ben, we have to go to the second half because the first half was 0-0. It's very chess-like, wasn't it? And Leverkusen showed well. But the second half, absolute destruction. There's no two ways about it. I mean, the second half against Bayer Leverkusen, just how good were the stats in this one?
Yeah, so I mentioned that the second half was a lot better. So in the first half, Leverkusen kind of controlled possession, 57%. There was zero big chances created from either side. So none for Liverpool, none for Leverkusen. The combined expected goals, well, it did swing in Liverpool's favour, but combined didn't even reach one XG. Liverpool had 0.63 and Leverkusen had 0.16. So, yeah, I mean, there were 14 shots in that first half from both teams. Again, quite low, 9 for Liverpool, 5 for Leverkusen. Second half, complete turnaround. There were 20 shots overall, 13 for Liverpool, 7 for Leverkusen, 5 big chances for Liverpool, 1 big chance for Leverkusen, and the expected goals were, well, close to 4 basically. If we're combining it, 3.16 for Liverpool, 0.63 for Leverkusen, and Liverpool had more of the ball as well, got a bit more possession, with 53% compared to Leverkusen's 47%. So yeah, overall really took control of the game in that second half. And yeah, we're going to talk about some of the sort of key people to do it. And one player who, I think we're going to get to talk about is Curtis Jones, because right now it does feel like he's undroppable in this team. And I think he showed that in this Leverkusen game as well.
Yeah, no two ways about it. I mean, before we get to Curtis Jones, it would be remiss of us to ignore the hat-trick hero. I mean, Luis Diaz, and I mean, the first was created by Curtis Jones, and it was a sumptuous finish as well. Just how good were Luis Diaz's stats in this one?
You know what? I feel like with Diaz, every time he scores a lot of goals, his stats are not great. We spoke about similar things in the Man United game, right? He lost the most duels in this game, had the least touches of any player who started the match and played the 90 minutes. Um, and yeah, like it wasn't, yeah, wasn't great. Lost like 10 duels lost. I think there was just one dribble attempt and he didn't even complete that. So this is not the Diaz that we know, but he was playing in a different role for him. It was as a number 9 rather than as a winger. So naturally, you're going to have less dribble attempts. Obviously, again, because he was an unnatural role, I think it's to be expected that maybe he wasn't taking as many touches. So 35 is very low. But at the end of the day, it's the touches that made the difference for Liverpool that count. And yeah, he was there in the right moments, in the decisive moments. And I think one of the big things with Diaz is looking into the numbers, like what's happened that last season he was scoring 11 goals in 50 matches, and now he's already he scored 13 goals last season in 50 matches, and this season he's on 11 in under on slot. So I was sort of looking at the stats. 11 included pre-season, by the way. So 9 technically when we count the full season, but it was just one match, and that was his literal first game against Arne Slot. For Arne Slot, sorry, against Sevilla, and he still managed to get a brace. And I think that kind of just shows start as you mean to go on, because that's what he has done. So anyway, I was looking at the stats, like what's made the difference? What's the key here? Why is he so much more prolific than he was last season? And I think everything comes down to shot selection, and that's, I think, has been the key here. So last season, he was averaging a lot of shots outside the penalty area. It was actually, out of all of his shots, over 25%, 26.6% of his shots were from outside the box. This season, that has dropped down to 12% from 26%. And I think we're seeing the fruits of his labor, the fruits of his decision making becoming better. He's refined those numbers. It's a significant drop. He's taking shots from the right areas inside the box where there's a higher probability that you're going to score. And we're seeing that come to effect.
Yeah, no two ways about it. I mean, you mentioned there his numbers, and I suppose people will look and go, as you said, it's 9 senior goals, it's 2 assists this season. People will be thinking about this because it probably wouldn't be the numbers you were expecting from Luis Diaz. I don't think even the most optimistic of Luis Diaz fans had these numbers at this stage of the season. What do you reckon might be a realistic target for him in terms of, I don't know, goal contributions even this campaign and before the end of the season?
It's a tough one. I mean, you can only base it on what we have seen so far, but that is a small sample size. But I don't know, let's say Liverpool play 50 season with the sort of goals and assists that he's averaging so far. I think it's realistic to assume he'll get 30, at least 30 goals and assists if he stays fit as well. That's important to note. But I think that's a realistic target for him now. He's set himself up for that to be a very real possibility.
Yeah, it just seems crazy, those numbers. I mean, those numbers, and I know people probably might not like this comparison, we're almost talking a Mane-esque to Salah, aren't we, really? They could really dovetail those two, couldn't they?
Absolutely, but he will be Mane-esque and he will be Salah-esque if he continues this form. And I think the comparisons with Mane are even more apt after we saw him play in a central role, because obviously the last sort of 6 months, or maybe it was a little shorter than that, but his last sort of few months at Liverpool, Mane, it was played as a number 9. People do forget that, and he was very prolific as a number 9 as well when he did play there. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I think there are definite comparisons there, and people obviously made the comparisons naturally when he first came in, and he sort of took Mane's place on the left wing and forced Mane to play in the middle. Now, it's weird how the tables turn, but in a weird way, we're now sort of saying actually he might be Liverpool's best option in that number 9 role. And I know the sample size is very short, but did we see such a prolific performance from Darwin in that role, or even Jota this season? I don't think so. One game at a time, but I definitely think he has put himself in that conversation, especially because Gakpo is so good on the left. That 3 combined, we'll need more games, we'll need more sample sizes, but I think it has definitely given Slot something to think about.
Yeah, he really has that second half, and he alluded to it in his press conference as well. And another player that he mentioned in his press conference, Ben, Curtis Jones. I mean, if you squinted your eyes slightly on Tuesday night and I was at Anfield, you could have been watching Luka Modric. This was genuinely an elite European performance on the eyes. Did the stats back this up?
Yeah, really good numbers. I actually attempted the most dribbles in the game, but it was only 2, so it's not a lot. But 2 out of 2, you can only do what everyone else has done, and he stood out among those people, the players on the pitch anyway. 5 draws, 4-1, 90% pass completion rate. Yeah, just solid numbers in terms of what you're looking for from a midfielder, winning your duels. Not the highest amount of duels, because I don't think Liverpool had to compete in a lot of duels in this game, but it was still quite a significant amount for in terms of the average of what Liverpool players are attempting. Obviously, you're looking for them to keep possession, especially against a team like Leverkusen, who you expected them to press and you expected them to come forward. He did that, 90% pass completion rate. And then any midfielder, especially in that role, and it's you're expecting them to make the difference, and it's what we haven't seen Szoboszlai do all season, or very rarely seen. But in that position, you have to make the difference when it comes to creating chances, scoring goals, and he did that as well. I mean, I don't know if the game would have been as comfortable for Liverpool if he didn't unlock Leverkusen's defence and set that brilliant pass through to Luis Diaz. And I think there is a definite conversation to be had, because this is not the first sort of moment where he's been decisive for Liverpool this season now. Brighton, the winning goal, he provided the assist for that. Then Chelsea scored the winning goal against them. Just these sort of last few weeks, he's making those key moments. And I think based on that he's making a big statement that he should be Liverpool's sort of first choice 10, or at least, if Slot wants to play Szoboszlai, he should be Liverpool's first choice 8, maybe alongside Gravenberch and perhaps not McAllister, which is strange because obviously Liverpool paid so much money for Szoboszlai and McAllister, but it might just be the case, if Jones keeps this going, that they had a pretty competent midfielder there in the first place who's good enough for the starting 11 as well.
Yeah, he did absolutely sensational in this one. And I think the only thing we want with Curtis Jones is availability, isn't it? Just keep this performance going. That is all we're asking for. And in terms of a player we'll probably speak about recently and every week, and I have absolutely no problem with this at all, a game where Mo Salah doesn't grab the headlines, but still grabs 2 assists and is one of the main men. No two ways about it, Ben. I mean, I'm intrigued with these 2 assists. He's only scored 1 goal in the Champions League, hasn't he? But he seems to be getting assists galore. Where is he kind of standing there, as it says in these all-time Champions League rankings around goals and assists?
Yeah, so I did have a look. They obviously didn't always count assists, so I don't know how far this goes back in terms of the data. I don't know if in like the 50s, if they've retrospectively counted up the assists from the 50s side. I don't know. I can't speak for that, so do take that with a caveat. But it definitely does go from the 1990s onwards. Currently, he's sitting in 15th position with 64 goals and assists in 83 games.
Wow.
Not bad. Not bad. He's quite, I think, to get to the top 10, which is Ruud van Nistelrooy in 10th place, he just needs 10 more goals and assists, and he will be joined with Ruud van Nistelrooy on 74. After that, it's a bit trickier because 9th is Kylian Mbappe with 76. So I don't know if he'll be able to catch up with him, given that Mbappe plays for Real Madrid, although he has been in pretty poor form. So you never know. You never know. I don't think he'll ever get to the leaderboard as much as I love Salah. Unsurprisingly, Ronaldo leads with 188 and Messi with 174. That's that's still asking Salah to provide more than 110 assists to even reach Messi's tally. But nonetheless, it's really important numbers, and I mean it's really impressive numbers. Sorry, and if he does get 10 more, it will mean he'll be above Giggs and Henry, and we are talking about probably like two of the best Premier League players in history, and he'll be above them. Currently, he's above Figo, Drogba, Iron Robben, Kaka, David Beckham, Wayne Rooney, Luis Suarez. Like, not bad names. So, yeah, he's not in bad company, and he's got. I keep saying this, and I think I wrote an article for Anfield Index as well. He just keeps getting better this season. It felt like towards the end of last season, maybe some things were like some numbers were dropping a little bit in terms of successful take-ons. Now, numbers, I know it's a short sample size, although it's getting bigger and bigger now because we have actually played quite a lot of games. His numbers are better than ever. Successful take-ons are the best they've been since the last 6 seasons. Defensive numbers, again, the best they've been in the last 6 seasons. And it feels like almost paradoxically he's aging. He's getting deeper into his 30s, but he's getting better and better. And I keep urging on social media and everywhere that this man needs to be tied down to a new contract because this man can go on, I think, at this level for at least 2 more years, if not more. I mean, I'd argue he'll go on to be at this level for a lot longer. And let's be honest, if we can tie him down to 2 more years, he'll get those 10 goals and assists, and catch up with those other people ahead of him and get into the top 10 because he's good enough and he will do it. And we never know. He might even catch up with those numbers this season if Liverpool go in a big run in the Champions League. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed because there is actually more games in the Champions League this season, so more opportunities to get that tally up. So yeah, definitely, I think really impressive numbers, and it's quite impressive that he's done most of this for Liverpool. Obviously, there was a brief period at Chelsea and Roma and Basel as well, but most of these goals and assists have come while playing for Liverpool.
Yeah, no doubts about it at all. Fingers crossed we get to see him a few years and he can chase even more. I suppose in terms of the team overall, because like we said, there's some brilliant individual stats and performances there, Ben. 4 in a row, 100% record, 12 points. How do Liverpool's Champions League campaigns go when they do start this well? When they go 4 for 4, how does history say it follows from there?
Well, I was looking at the Klopp era, and it was only done once, so it's not a regular occurrence. Even when Liverpool won the Champions League, they didn't didn't win their first 4 games in a row, but they did do it in 21, 22. Obviously, that season when Liverpool, we thought, were going to be competing and were competing for much of the season for the quadruple. They started that season brilliantly, went on to play in the final, and then something was missing, obviously, in that final, or maybe you can say Courtois was in between the sticks for Real Madrid, and Liverpool didn't have Courtois, although and Real Madrid got one lucky breakaway and won the game. But apart from that, Liverpool were very close to winning that season, and if the omens would suggest, then possibly Liverpool could get to the final again based on this start. I definitely haven't seen. It's early days in the Champions League, but I haven't seen anyone as good as Liverpool. Real Madrid haven't convinced me. Leverkusen haven't convinced me. Obviously, Aston Villa started well, and we'll talk a little bit about Aston Villa, but I don't think there has been anyone who sort of scares me in this competition. I might regret those words, but I'm actually quite looking forward to Real Madrid at Anfield in a few weeks' time. I'm really looking forward to it and seeing what we can do against them.
Yeah, it is going to be fascinating. No two ways about it at all. Before the international break and before we get to Real Madrid, it's Villa this weekend. And my gut is telling me, and I'm thinking of recent history, that we've got quite a good record in this one. Are the stats backing that up, Ben?
Yeah, so I was the opposite actually, because I always think of Villa as like our bogey team, the team that we struggle against. And I don't know, maybe it comes from my childhood because I remember the Benteke days and sort of other those other eras of like when they had a really good team of like Milner and Gareth Barry and players like that, Ashley Young. I remember those days, and it felt like Villa were sort of our thorn in the side, the Achilles heel. Although we had a lot of Achilles heel during my childhood, to be fair. But I think it's the COVID game as well, the 7-2 massive defeat, which was a major fluke in the Jurgen Klopp era. Since then, though, Liverpool haven't lost a game to Villa in any competitions. So that was back in 2020, 4 years ago. There's been a few games since then. I mean, Billy has been in the Premier League ever since. So, no defeats. The last 8 games, 5 wins and 2 draws. And the Anfield record is even better because Liverpool haven't lost to Aston Villa for over a decade now at Anfield. Christian Benteke was the last one when he infamously had a really good game against Liverpool and then somehow convinced Brendan Rodgers he was the player Liverpool should be signing over some other better option, shall we say. I don't want to spoil anything because there is a good book about that out there right now, written by Liverpool's former director of recruitment, I believe. I don't quite know. Yeah. So I recommend people reading that and finding out that story. But yeah, it up since then, Liverpool's record at Anfield has been pretty formidable. And in general, there haven't been too many defeats to Villa. There were some big ones like the 7-2, and I don't even want to count this as a Liverpool defeat because the 5-0 in the League Cup when we had basically our under-21 team show up and they had their full first team play against us is not a fair comparison, or I think it needs an asterisk in the results because it was a very, very unfair and one-sided game. But yeah, the record is good, and I think I was looking at the numbers on Villa as well heading into this because on paper they've done quite well. They're quite high up on the table. Obviously started really well in the Champions League, so I was looking at the numbers, like the data behind them, and it kind of surprised me that then it's not that impressive. Like they're not leading anything. Like one clean sheet so far this season. They've conceded quite a lot of goals already, which is encouraging for Liverpool. They come across to me very similar to Arsenal. If we're looking at the average possession stats, they're just above Arsenal on the leaderboard. So I think Arsenal is 12th, Villa are 11th, so quite average when it comes to possession. They will prefer to sit back. They're not an intense pressing team. And I think all of these things could play into Liverpool's advantage if we get Curtis Jones playing like he did against Bayer Leverkusen. I mean, these are big ifs, and you're shaking your head a little bit, Dave, but if we get everyone at their best again, then there is a good chance here to get another good result against Villa, because they're and I want to touch wood here again, and don't want to jinx anything, but they don't. There are areas that Liverpool can exploit here.
Fingers crossed for this one. Yeah, I thought back to last season as well, the 3-0 when Szoboszlai hit that left foot one where he cut across it absolutely beautifully. And I suppose a bit further than Villa, to be fair on this, Ben, and we still got to put an if, like you said, the caveat on it. If Liverpool are top, which is a real possibility by the second international break, this one in November, how does it normally go from there?
You ask how it normally goes, but November international breaks haven't been that much of a thing. And it's only happened once. Taking away COVID and everything else, it hasn't been a very regular occurrence. So even back in the day of like the 13-14 season, Liverpool were not top during the November international break. They were actually, I think, third with Arsenal and perhaps Chelsea above them at the time. So the one time it did happen, and you're going to like this, and I think everyone listening will like this. I wanted to build a bit of suspense to it. Was the 2019-2020 season, and can you guess what happened? Do you remember what happened that season?
I think we all do, don't we? Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that would be. We say we're excited today, but we're not getting carried away just yet, people. History is just telling us what history is telling us. That's all we can tell you at the same time. But everything's going good for Liverpool. What more can we ask? And a little bit different on this one, Ben, because we always like to finish with a bit of a special segment, as it were. I mean, last week we were talking about forward targets. All aboard the choo-choo train, it seems, on social media at the moment. I know you will have seen the links galore to Tchouameni at Real Madrid. Now, this intrigues me, Ben, because people are saying, like, brilliant, we have to sign him up. And I do wonder if people are thinking about the Monaco Tchouameni, shall we say, that promise, the one that Jurgen Klopp really wanted. But then I also see some Madrid people commenting on quite a few things going, you can take him. He's not worth anything. He's not in our team. What do the stats say for Tchouameni this season? Is he profiling good, or are we chasing the memory of a ghost here a little bit?
You know what? I'm surprised Madrid fans don't hate him. I don't watch enough of Real Madrid. Obviously, this season things haven't gone the way they wanted to. I watched the Barcelona Del Clasico. I think everyone watched that, and they were terrible. But Tchouameni has never seemed like the problem to me in this Real Madrid team. He doesn't see, it doesn't seem like he's the hindrance. I can think of other missing links there and other reasons why they're not doing well, but he doesn't seem like the reason for that. And just looking at the numbers this season, I wanted to compare him to who would be his positional rival in Liverpool, and I wanted to compare him to Gravenberch because I think that's a really good comparison. Everyone is raving about Gravenberch, and rightfully so. He's been brilliant. He's been fantastic. But obviously, there comes a caveat: La Liga, Premier League, two different competitions in terms of intensity, and that has to be said. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. Personally, I think the Premier League is better, but in terms of intensity, at least, it is different. So the passing numbers, I think, are important for a slot team. Gravenberch this season, 5.8 progressive passes per 90. Tchouameni, 8.4. Passes into the final third, Gravenberch, 5.10. Tchouameni, 9.15.
Wow.
Then we're heading into sort of the other key areas, the defensive side of the game, again, where Gravenberch has excelled, and it's a very important sort of factor when you're playing in that holding midfield role. So this season, Gravenberch has 3.6 tackles and interceptions per 90. Tchouameni has 4.57. So again, almost one tackle and interception more than Gravenberch. And looked at sort of tackle percentage, where Gravenberch comes out a lot better actually with 62.5. And Tchouameni has 44%, just under 44%. So that's a little bit low. They attempt the same amount of tackles. Tchouameni slightly higher with 1.7, Gravenberch 1.6. So that's one area where you could say Gravenberch perhaps wins there. And another area where defensively Gravenberch has the better of Tchouameni is when it comes to recoveries. 5.9 per 90, 4.68 for Tchouameni. But overall, the difference between them is not huge. And I think that the differences that there are rather due to the league and the style that they play in, rather than anything else. They are quite similar players. So the question is, do Liverpool really need another Gravenberch when we've already got Gravenberch in this form? And I think I'd even press that further. Do Liverpool need to pay 50, 60, probably higher, 70 million for a player who we've already got already? Now there is the question, do I think they could play together in a double pivot? And I think that's a real possibility. And perhaps in the next episode, I need to do a comparison with Tchouameni and McAllister to see what their numbers are like. But I definitely do think I like him. I don't think he's the problem at Real Madrid. If he's available, I would be happy if Liverpool signed him for certain. I do raise the question mark because Liverpool do have quite a lot of midfielders already. So where does he exactly fit in? Do we really need him? I don't necessarily know because of how good Gravenberch has been. But then again, if you asked me this question in the summer, I would have snapped my hands off to bring him into the club. Obviously, given what happened with Zubimendi and everything else. So it is one to consider. And if he is truly available, I'd be open to it. I just think right now we might need to make a bit of room for him in the squad because he can obviously come in and play as an 8 and as a 6. So it would mean perhaps someone else leaving, I think, if he were to sign.
I think, if we're being honest, though, Ben, most people would happily make the trade with the likes of a Tyler Morton or an Echo going out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, even if it's just a rotational option cover with Gravenberch, but a guy with a hell of a pedigree. It is interesting to hear that whilst the defensive stats are a bit lower, maybe, as we said, the nature of the league compared with La Liga and Premier League, the passing, especially the progressive passing, it trumps Gravenberch in some distance. So it will be interesting to see if Tchouameni is a realistic target for Liverpool, or is it just paper talk? But we probably won't have to wait to find out.
I think I wanted to add as well, like because of those progressive numbers, I can see them playing together and playing off of each other's strengths. And I think that would be quite a formidable sort of double pivot for Liverpool. I know Arne Slot doesn't like to call it a double pivot, but it is kind of a double pivot, and it would be, really hard to break down, I think.
Yeah, unbelievable defensive screening. But this could just be a pipe dream, ladies and gents. We will have to see. All we can do is bring you that analysis. So there we are. We are at the top of the show about 35 minutes later. So all it leaves me to say as ever is, Ben, for the time, the insight, and for answering the questions, it is much appreciated.
Yeah, really enjoyed it. I was hoping the stat about Liverpool being top in the November international break would be the sort of last thing we said and then a big mic drop and end the episode. But obviously it didn't work out that way. But maybe me just sort of bringing it back into the conversation will allow a little bit of a mic drop, a more muted one.
Positives galore. But ladies and gents, that was another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index.